There was a time in my life when I looked strong on the outside, but inside, I was exhausted. I knew how to push through. I knew how to work hard. I knew how to serve, provide, lead, and keep going when life was heavy. I was a Desert Storm veteran. I had worked, built businesses, served my community, and carried responsibilities that most people never saw. But what people did not see was the part of me that had learned to survive by staying quiet. My story with trauma did not begin as an adult. It started when I was a boy. I grew up in a home where fear became part of my nervous system. I learned early what it felt like to watch for moods, listen for danger, try to figure out how to stay safe. I did not have the words for it back then. I just knew how to survive, and I had to survive. As I got older, I carried that survival mode with me. I became tough. I became responsible. I became the person who could take a hit and keep moving and not talk about what was really happening inside. Then later in life, I found myself in relationships where I was again walking on eggshells. I knew what it felt like to get blamed, controlled, dismissed, and emotionally worn down. And because I was a man, I also knew how hard it was to say those words out loud. Men are often told to be strong, to tough it out, to fix it, to not complain, and to never admit they are hurting. So we bury it. We suck it up. We call it stress. We call it anger. We call it marriage problems. We call it just life. But sometimes what we are really carrying is abuse, trauma, shame, grief, and years of silence. Before I would admit it, I needed to work it on myself. I would go through 2 divorces and the death of a fiance between 2014 and 2017. That season sent my mind into a spiral dive. It was not until then that I finally sought help and got way out of my comfort zone. And that part matters. Because healing did not begin when I became tougher. Healing began when I became honest. I had to look in the mirror and ask myself hard questions. I had to ask for help and actually take it. I had to stay out of my comfort zone long enough to grow. Instead of running back to what I felt familiar, I had to face the truth that my nervous system had been shaped by violence, fear, emotional abuse, and survival. I had to learn that strength was not the same as silence. I had to learn boundaries were not cruelty. I had to learn that calm is not weakness. I had to learn that being a man does not mean pretending pain does not exist. That work changed the direction of my life. It was that work, looking in the mirror, asking the hard questions, asking for help and taking it, and staying out of my comfort zone that led me to meeting my best friend in 2019. She became my wife in 2020. Then in 2024, it was my wife, Tarina, who suggested that I become a speaker to help men. That suggestion stirred something in me. I gave it language to calling that had already been growing, to tell the truth, to break the silence, to reach men who are still hurting, and help people understand the hidden impact of trauma, abuse, resilience, healing, and unhealthy relationship patterns. That is where Courageous Warrior LLC began to take shape. Courageous Warrior LLC became the umbrella for my mission. Charles Tupper Speaks is the stage and public voice of that mission. Courageous Warrior Coach is the men's trauma coaching side, helping men who survived abuse, trauma, or toxic relationships as I did, stopping walking on eggshells, rebuilding their identity, and reclaim their lives with strength, boundaries, and purpose. Unshakable Vows is the proactive premarital and couples coaching side, helping coaches build emotional, safe, abuse-free relationships before the unhealthy patterns take root. Men are abused too is the awareness side, giving a voice to the truth too often ignored. Men can be abused, men can be wounded, and men deserve to be heard without shame. But for me, this is not just a business. This came from my own journey from victim to victor. It came from the boy who learned to survive. It came from the soldier who kept pushing. It came from the husband who spent too many years walking on eggshells. It came from the man who finally said, "Enough. I am not staying silent anymore." Today I speak to help men, couples, families, organizations, and communities understand what often stays hidden. I speak for the men who look fine on the outside but are breaking inside. I speak for the men who are angry but do not know what is underneath that anger. I speak for the men who feel ashamed because they were hurt by somebody that was supposed to love them. I speak for the men who are afraid no one will believe them. And I speak for it because healing is possible. I want men to know this. You are not weak because you were wounded. You are not less of a man because you were hurt. And your story does not have to end in silence. Courageous Warrior LLC exists to help people heal, stand firm, communicate better, build safer relationships, and reclaim their lives with courage and purpose. Charles Tupper Speaks is one way that message moves from silence into the open. Because Courageous Warrior is not a man who never got wounded. A courageous warrior is a man who chooses to heal, stand back up, and use his history to help others rise.